Hi everyone, welcome back. I wanted to show you today how to do a tree of life pendant because I'm on a few wire wrapping groups on Facebook and I popped them up there to say would anyone like to see it, and it was a unanimous yes. So I have decided that that's what I will show you today. So I'm wearing one at the moment with a beautiful solidite. It's sunset solidite stone. It's just amazing. And then there's one here that I have made as well using antique bronze. So obviously this one is silver, and then we've got an antique bronze one. I make mine slightly differently to the way you may have seen other people doing it. And I'll explain as we go, like why I do that. But to start with, I'm just going to show you a few things that we need. So I've got a couple of cabs here that I want to show you just because they're so beautiful. But I'll show you the one I'm going to end up using. But yeah, I've got all different sized cabs. Some are different thicknesses as well, but it doesn't really matter. You can use this technique for any of these sizes. I'm going to pick this lovely moss agate one, I think, for now, because I think it looks like it's got mountains on it. It's really cool. So it's one of my favorites. So that is to start with. Obviously you need a cab, and you can do this with 20 gauge wire. So the antique bronze one, I did use 20 gauge antique bronze because I didn't have a different size, but it's slightly more bendy. So I'm using a different wire today than I usually do. This one is a 1mm. It's called half round. So half round wire is because one side is slightly flatter than the other, and it just gives you a little bit more strength. So it's 18 gauge, half round, and silver plated copper. So it's quite a stiff wire to use, and I like to use that one for the back of it because we're wrapping a lot of wire around this, and often when you use the 20 gauge, it can just go out of shape a little bit, and sometimes, I mean, this is fine because I'm keeping this one because I love it. But if you want it to be kind of a neater finish, it's better to use this wire. And then the usual one that I go for the actual tree is the 26 gauge. So I'm going to do this one in silver because I think it will look really nice with this particular stone. I'm going to decide which way up I want to have the stone. I think I'm going to do it that way. And I want to start by creating my base for the back of my piece. So what I want to do is just kind of measure the stone. I kind of start off just by doing a little oval shape. One thing I didn't mention to you is the tools that you might need to start with. So I've got my flat nosed pliers, which are really helpful for kind of tucking ends in. You're going to need the needle nose ones because it's quite tricky to pull the wires out as you're wrapping them around. And then we've got our cutters to obviously cut our wire with. So those are the three that I will probably use today. And what I start off with doing is just trying to make the shape so that it hides right behind the cab, and I bend it at the top so that I've got enough left over to create the bail at the top that you hang your necklace with. So I just use my fingers. Some people will probably use pliers. I'm going to bring them in actually just to straighten that up because I bent it in slightly the wrong place. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating an oval shape that is going to fit perfectly behind my cab. So it's still a little bit big at the moment, so I know I need to bend it a little bit further in before I bend it out to create the part where the bail is going to go. I like to leave just a little bit extra across the top because it's easier to cut it off than think, oh, I don't have enough, and panic. So do the same on the other side so that it meets. I'm going to cut this off now because I know how much I need, so I'm just going to chop it off so it doesn't make that noise, and move that aside because I don't need that anymore. And just with my fingers, I'm going to shape it into a nice oval shape. It's quite a strong, sturdy wire, this, and I'm going to use this flat end to place onto the cab, and just to get a nice clean bend, I'm going to use my pliers. So if I bring the cab back in, it sits quite nicely, completely hidden, there you go, behind the cab, because that part you don't want to see. And then if we put that aside for a minute, what we need is all the strands that we're going to use to create the tree. So as I said, I do this slightly differently. You may have seen some people basically measure the length of the cab and cut it off either end. So then you've got to actually twist all the roots up as well as the top of the tree. Now I think that it's fine, it looks beautiful, but it leaves you with more kind of scratchy ends. So the way I actually do it is I measure the cab, and I want it to be a little bit further past the cab, but I double it over. Because what I'm going to do is the roots are just going to be twisted around the bottom, and that way you don't have loads of ends to sort out on that end as well as on the top. So I just do it a little bit differently. Either way is fine, whichever way you want to, but I just find this is a little bit neater, basically. So now I know that I want about, so because we're doubling this up, I'm going to say this is quite a delicate cab. It's quite a thin cab. So I want possibly 15 strands that will make 30 once they're doubled over. So I'm going to just cut my 15 strands out, make sure that they're roughly the same length. I'm actually going to get rid of that first one because it's really quite bent and wiggly, and you want it to be nice and straight. Even though you're going to bend it, you don't want lots of kinks in it. So I'm now going to cut my 15 strands out. You can use more. I think for this one I used 20 strands because it made 40 and it was a thicker, bigger cab, and it made a really nice kind of thick tree. My tree stands out from the stone. Some people make it quite flat and it kind of goes with the stone, but I kind of like it standing out. For me, it's just the way that I do it, so that's the way I will teach you. And I'm going to just cut out all the strands that I need today. So it doesn't matter if they're a little bit longer or shorter. Generally it all gets tucked away, and we want a little bit extra because sometimes you need to, I'd rather cut it off than not have enough and have it not reach. So let me just get these cut. I think I've lost count, so I'm just going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Just measure them against each other. Don't have to be exact. 6. 7. 8. As you can see, right, remember I have 8. This is all starting to bounce off the roll. I need to just tuck it around the top there so that no more comes off, otherwise you will get into a tangle. You don't want that to happen. So pick those up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Right, we've got 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and last one. To unwrap it a bit. and 15. Right, so those are the strands that I need to start my piece. And as we've already measured this bit, as you can see, it is quite a strong wire, which is good because we are going to be pulling on it quite a bit and we don't want it to be really misshapen at the back. So what I start with is just adding and looping. So I'm literally just going to put it in, loop it around once, and I create my 2 strands just like that. And I'm going to do that with all 15 pieces, and then you know that it reaches all the way to the top on both of our strands. And as you twist them, obviously they get a little bit shorter, so I'm just going to do that with all of my pieces. And the great thing about this way of doing it is the bottom, where all of your roots are going to be, have no jagged edges, nothing to tuck away. It's all nice and neat and clean, and you only have to focus on straightening and neatening up the top half. So that's why I do it this way. You might have also seen people using tape to hold the cab in place. I don't do that because I find that it's harder to take off once you've finished. It can be a bit sticky. Just not a fan, really. You can do that if you want to, if you find it easier to keep the cab in place. But what I do is I actually move the cab quite often. I bring it back in, measure, make sure it's all fitting okay, take it away again. And until I start actually wrapping it around the top, I don't have it in place anyway. You know, there are obviously varying techniques. People do these in different ways, but this is how I do it. So as you can see, I'm literally just wrapping around once and making sure all my strands are roughly the same size. As we go. I like to just keep pulling them straight so they don't get too many kinks in them. That one has a little twist in it, so I'll just untwist it a bit before I put it on. And twist it around. And just keep going like this until you've got all your strands in place. It doesn't matter if they overlap each other. Just adds to the kind of root feel of it all anyway. And then once we've done that, I'll show you how to twist the roots, and we have to kind of measure it against the cab, because what you want to do is twist the roots around and over the cab, so you're bending them slightly so that the base part, this bit, is still at the back, kind of behind the cab. So I will show you what I mean in a minute. I'm going to put some on the other side, I think. A couple of them over here. And apologies for my hands at the moment. I'm making a huge sculpture and I've managed to cut myself, stab myself many times with the wire. So my hands are kind of got little scratches and cuts all over them, but you will know how that feels if you are a wire wrapper. I think when you make the sculptures, it's a little bit easier to attack yourself than it is when you're doing your when you're doing your jewellery. So we're nearly there. I've just got one more piece to add. And there we go. So when I'm creating the roots, I kind of like to do odd numbers. So generally I go with kind of five little twists of the wire, but you could do 3. You could do even numbers if you want to, but just aesthetically, I think it just looks better if you do odd numbers for some reason. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I do is I gather a few strands together and just give them a really good twist. And that is as simple as that, just to create your first kind of root of the tree there. Now, because it needs to bend up and around the cab, it does need a little bit more twisting before you then start to twist them together. So what I do is I do 5 of these, and it doesn't matter how many you put into each bit. So you don't need to count or anything, you just gather a few together. Some can have more in them and some can have less, because obviously roots are all going to be different. You don't need to have them all looking the same. And again, I use my fingers, but you could bring your pliers in to get a really good tight twist on it there. So you can see these 2 roots are totally different sizes. That's great. That's kind of what you want. You don't really want it to be too uniform. I like to be a little bit more kind of random with it. So I'm going to do another group here. Let's bring that in. And again, you can use your fingers, or you can bring in your pliers. You might want to bring in your pliers just because you get a slightly kind of crisper twist on it, like so. So we've got our 3 going on. Now, where's that one coming from? That's it. Right, so I want to do 2 more, I think. So I'm just going to split these 2 in half, do a little less up that side, gather them together. Give that a good twist. I will show you properly in a minute, just the way I have to hold it. You can't really see, but there you go. We've got 4 little sets of roots there, and now I'm going to do the 5th one exactly the same way. Twist that one up like so. Now, what we want to do is actually combine these roots together, but what I want to do first is make sure that they come up and around my cab. So I'm going to put my cab in place, and I'm just going to push them around the cab, making sure that the thicker wire is still sitting behind, so you can't see it at all. So if you can see me bending that up, don't worry if it moves out of place, because what's going to happen is I'm going to keep pushing it down as I create the top half, and that will disappear. So now I've got my little bit of a bend in there. What I want to do is twist some of them together. So these 2 can go together. Use my pliers. It's a bit tough on the fingers if you do it all with your fingers. So those 2 can go together. Then maybe the middle 2, and then you've got one left on its own over there. But eventually, obviously, they'll all twist together to create the trunk. So I'm going to twist these 2. Like so. And I'm just going to bring in these needle-nosed ones just to get... What I want to do is make sure you can still see the definition. So I want there to be little gaps between the roots so that you can still see that they're roots. It just adds to the way it looks, just like that. Then bring this one in. And what I want to do now is make sure that it's still going to... You're still going to be able to see all the roots, but obviously that bend, if you can see the bend in there, is still there. And then I'm going to twist all of these together to start creating the trunk. Now what I want to do is bring the cab in. You don't necessarily want it to go straight up the centre, so I like to twist mine a little bit, make my trunk kind of go off centre a little bit. This one's going to go off to this side. I'll turn it around actually, from looking from that view. You can see how I've twisted it. You can still see all of the roots, and we're starting to get this lovely tree shape forming. I'm going to bring the cab back in. Remember which way up I want it. Probably, I think that way, yeah. And just make sure again that if I push that right down, you can see, you can't see the wire behind. So I've pushed that right in, it's a good twist. That sits really nicely, and now we can move the cab again. We don't need it. Now, I find this technique so much easier than having two lots of ends. So you've got to wind the roots around and the top around, because as you can see, this is already really neat. And now I just have to focus on how I want my branches to be. So I'm going to spread all these out. And it's a similar way of doing it as you do the, as we did the roots. We're just going to spread it out and choose sections to twist. So I'm going to start with this side. I'm going to twist that, and this piece can go out and branch out again. That's why we call it branches, isn't it? And I'll twist these ones together and then these ones together. So as you can see, completely random. You don't need to really count or think about this. I find that it's better to have 2 or 3 strands in each section, and then you can split them off into one like that, but you don't have to. You can actually just wrap all of these around, but you can see how this is starting to form. So what I like to do is I go so I'll start with this side, and then I'll do the other side and work my way to the middle, because that's how you kind of make sure that the branches look right. There's sometimes you can do it and they just look really strange and they haven't worked properly. So I like to just twist them and make sure that they're even and looking good as we work our way up the tree. So I'm going to give that one a little twist, all of those together. So we've got a big thick branch coming off there, and then we've got these strands that have just decided to come away, so I'll just twist those ones together too. And you can move it around as much as you like to position it into a place that you're happy with, but this is really starting to form a beautiful tree. It's going to look great around this green. The silver looks great against the green, but obviously you can use different colours as well. I like to just pick up each colour and put it against the cab and just see which one I think will look better. So I'm sure I'll use copper at some point and antique bronze again. And I'm just going to twist all these together and keep looking at how I want these roots, all these branches to look. So I can twist them down and around and make sure that I'm making it look like a tree. So let me just bring this out again. I'm just going to twist these together. And as we do it, you can see it kind of, they end up getting a bit of a life of their own, really, and kind of going off in their own direction, which is great. And we can create all of this before we then put the cab in. Obviously, once I start twisting these around, I do need to slot the cab in and hold it in place. And that's when some people use tape, but I don't. I just find it easier not to. Twist this one up, and I think I'm going to twist those together a minute so that the tree goes up a bit higher. And then twisting these at the top. And I'll move my fingers in a minute so you can see what I'm doing. And this needs to spread. See how our tree is starting to take shape. Twisting these ones together as well. And then what I like to do is I'm just going to figure out which one I kind of want to form around the top, because we will wrap it kind of around the top here. So So I've split those off again, and it's created a really interesting little kind of knot in there, which is great because that is what trees do look like. I'm going to untwist this a little bit because I kind of like, there we go. Look how that's actually looking better, looking more like a gnarly tree now. So this is where it gets a little bit fiddly, because what we want to do now is start to tuck all of our wires that are at the top away. So what you can do, what you want to make sure of as you wrap them, is that there's no rough edges on the back. If someone's going to wear it, they don't want it catching on their clothes or their skin. So we just need to be aware of tucking everything away. So I'm going to start doing that in a minute. I want a little extra branch coming off, so I'm just unwrapping this a little bit. And this is what you can do. And what's great about this is it doesn't matter if you unwrap it and it's got kinks in it, because that actually creates more interest in the tree. I just wanted an extra branch coming off here. So I've unwrapped it a little bit, and then I'll twist these two together like that. That is starting to look really good. So now this is where we bring the cab in and we decide which way we're going to put it. We slot it into place, and I start by just pushing it down, making sure that the thick silver wire is completely hidden. It will move around until you start to actually put your things in place. So I generally start with this side again, wrap it around this side, then I move over to here and I'll wrap those, then I'll do the top bit, and then I'll tuck away all of the other branches. So holding that in place, don't worry too much to start with. It is fiddly. This is why people probably do stick the cab down, but you can push it back into place until you've got all of your things in place. It is going to move around a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is start with this one here, and I'm going to wrap it around nice and firmly. I use my needle nose ones to kind of pliers, just to kind of push it under, and my fingers because it's easier. So I've pushed that under, and I'm just going to pull it through and pull it nice and firmly. What we want to do is make sure we wrap it maybe 2, hopefully 3 times before we kind of cut it off, because you want it to be, I'm just giving it a push because I don't want to be able to see this wire underneath. So I'm just adjusting as I go. And I'm going to wrap that round again, just to give it a bit of security. And what you want to try and do is make sure that the point of this wire is hidden right underneath in there. So if you run your fingers along it, you can't feel any rough edges. So I'm just going to pull that through again and tuck it right under. That one was the perfect length. Don't need to cut that one off because we managed to wrap it 3 times without it being an issue. And again, I'm just pushing it, making sure that the roots sit really nicely. I'll turn it over again. And I want to just grab that piece there, tuck that one under. And then once we've done this one side, I'm going to move over to the other side, just so it kind of evens out and holds the cab in place, so I don't have to keep pushing it down, because obviously it's moving around at the moment. Now I don't have to tuck away all the ends. Once it's wrapped, I can actually finish that off later. So I want to just focus on the other side for now, just to get that into place. And I'm going to split that and give these a little twist to add a couple of extra branches in there. So twist that around. So you can see I'm adding a couple of branches just to add a bit more interest on the front, basically. Just twist those around. And I want to make sure that these are firmly wrapped around the back. So I get a bit of cramp in my thumb. I was doing so much of the sculpture yesterday. Hurt my thumb. So push this in and under. Sorry, not those pliers, they're the wrong ones. Needle nose ones are much easier to get right in there and grab the wire. There we go. And again, just want to pull it nice and tightly to secure the cab in place. There we go. I'm just going to move those out of the way. And it's starting to form. So hang on a minute. Oh, don't want the cab to break. That would be really bad. So push it back in again. So now that I've got the two sides kind of in place, what I want to do is secure it at the top here. So I'm going to pick one of these branches at the top to just wrap around the top, and then we've secured it in place so we don't have the problem of it falling out like it just did then. So I'm just going to wrap this around here a few times, and I can have a look at where I want these placed. Those ones I am going to twist together like so. And I can use this one as well, just to wrap around the top so we've got this secure. And what I want to do, I don't want all of these branches to be straight, so I'm just going to give them a little kink with my pliers. But that's now much more secure. So I'm just going to go back to this one. Give it a little pull just to make sure that it's nice and secure, and then I'm going to push this one under as well. It's kind of gone slightly out of shape at the back there, so I'm just going to readjust. There we go, that's fine. As long as you can't see it on the front, doesn't really matter at the back. And we've got our cab now nice and secure. So the focus now is just tucking away all our branches, and this does take a while. This is quite time consuming, but what I'd suggest is to wrap each one around and still have your bits. If you can see this, I've still got my bits pointing out, so I haven't cut them off yet. And I'm going to do that with each piece so that they're all sticking out at the back, but I've got them all secure, and then I'll focus on tucking them away and making sure that they're all neat and tidy. And then at the end we can finish off the bail. I'll show you how to do that. This tree is starting to look really nice, really lovely shape on this beautiful stone. I'm pushing this at the back here because I just don't want to be able to see that from the front. There we go. And that's nice and hidden away. And I'm just going to focus now on tucking away all these branches. Give these a twist. You can split them again if you want to, and have one or two strands coming off here. Tucking everything in. You'll figure out as you go which pliers you think are the best one for the job. I keep swapping over because for pushing under, these are quite good, but for shaping, the flat nose ones are better. So I am just tucking all of these wires away at the back here. pull that one through. I'm only doing them once for now, and as I said, just leaving them all sticking out like this, because then I can tuck them away, cut them short, however I like as I go. Now I do, again, a bit on one side, a bit on the other, and I work my way up to the top now. So let's pull these apart, tuck these ones in. Sorry if it disappears from the screen occasionally. I have to bring it to my face so I can actually see what I'm doing. Tuck those under. Sometimes it's better to have slightly more wire to work with. So some of these might be a tiny bit short. So I'd recommend just possibly pulling it, making sure you have a little bit longer pieces, but actually it's just easier then to tuck them away. That one is disappearing. There we go, that's tucked away. And again, turn it over, see what the placement's like. I kind of like where that is. What I can do is just slide them around a bit, bend them a little bit to make them look more branchy. And it's really starting to take shape. So let's bring this one in, give these a little bit of a twist. What I might do is pull that one out, because then we've got, there we go, we've got more branches appearing if we pull some out and push them in. Twist this around. This is the bit that is going to be quite fiddly and time consuming. If you're prepared for it and you want something beautiful at the end, it's well worth it and well worth the effort, I think. I love wearing mine. And I will have some coming up in my my shop. The link will be in the what section? The link will be in the description section down below if you want to actually purchase one of these instead of trying to make it yourself. But I know you're all watching because you want to give it a go. So I have mentioned before, if you like what you see, please do subscribe, because I pop up a video every week with something new. And what I'd really love is for you to make a comment and let me know if you want me to make anything, because I'm really happy. Like this one, obviously I said, would you like me to show you? And everyone said yes. So I'm absolutely up for any suggestions that you might make on how to do something, and I will hopefully do a video and show you. Dropping things. So I've done 3 or 4 on this side, so I'm going to move over and continue on the other side, because then I can even it out and make sure it's looking really neat. And it is random, but we are placing it precisely so that it looks like a tree. Sometimes they can look a bit strange because we've placed things in the wrong place. So it's good to work your way up and not rush it. So I've tucked a couple away. Why my hands are shaky today. Interesting. Right. I'm gonna just twist those, pull them apart a bit at the front so that they sit where I want them to sit. Then wrap that next one away. And again, just looking on the other side just to make sure that they're placed where I want them to be. So I'm just gonna a bit of a squeeze. I'm liking how that's looking. This one is quite thick, so I'm going to need to split this. Twist these ones around, and put them into where I want them to go. There we are. This is looking good. Right, so I've bent those all back, so I just need to twist them around now, make sure they're all tucked under. There's some slightly shorter bits there that I just need to tuck away to make sure that they're not going to snag or catch on anything. And we're nearly at the top now, and as you can see, I've left all these bits kind of straggling, and I will focus on getting rid of those once all of the bits are attached. It's looking lovely from the front there. Tuck these ones away. Just got to make sure that they're twisted as much as you want them at the front before you tuck them away at the back. Ooh, got attached. So that needs to be twisted a bit more. That one can be tucked away. Like that. So yeah, this is the reason why I do the roots the way I do, is you can see that there's so many branches that you need to tuck away and all these little bits of wire. It saves you having to do that at the bottom as well. Less to worry about. I just think it's a slightly easier way of doing it. Just going to push those under. Can be tucked right away there. So once I've started to tuck these away, I can keep running my fingers over the back just to make sure that there are no snaggy bits to it. So that one is going to be pushed right the way around. Those ones were slightly shorter, but that's fine because they are going to tuck away quite nicely. We're nearly there now, so I've just got to focus on how I want the top bit to look. So I'm just going to have a look at how they're sitting. I'm going to wrap that one around the top there. This is definitely the fiddly bits that we're doing here. Make sure that's... So I've only got... What have I got left? Yep, I need to pull that one maybe a bit tighter. So what I've done at the moment is I've only wrapped it around maybe once. And what I want to do is go back and wrap them again and then tuck away all the ends. So those that are pulling nice and tightly, you can see, and I can arrange them with my pliers the way I want them to look, like so. And I need to twist those ones together. So I've only got 4 little bits left now to tuck away. And then we'll neaten up the back, and then I'll show you how to finish off the bail. There is actually another video where I do 3 different types of bails. So you could have a look at that one if you don't want to use the bail that I'm doing, that I'm going to finish this one with. But I think it's quite a nice way. So it's just going to be a bail like this. It's a nice way to finish it off. Need to twist those ones as well. So as you can see, there's no kind of... That's the thing with the tree. It's quite unruly and different, and it doesn't matter how... Each one's going to look completely different because we're wrapping them in different ways each time. Just got to tuck all of these bits in. So the Tree of Life is kind of my signature thing. It's what I make my sculptures out of. It's what I do with my sculptures, sorry. And I like to call these pieces wearable art because they look so pretty on their own, like a little miniature sculpture, and then you can wear them, which I absolutely love. And tuck these ones away. We're nearly there. It is fiddly, it does take time, but I think you'll agree that it's well worth it when you have such a beautiful piece when you're finished. Got a few more bits. I'm just going to move these ones out of the way. So we've got there we go. And as I pull that tight, you can see it actually fixed the slightly wonky bit at the back, which is nice. Pulls it back into shape a little bit. But you don't want to pull too hard that it disappears. I mean that it shows, sorry, on the other side. Right. There will be a timestamp in the description as well, so if you want to just jump to where the bail is being made, you can. Because obviously, if you know how to tuck all the ends away, you don't need to watch me doing it, but perfectly happy for you to stay and watch as well. It's up to you. Just makes it easier if there's a timestamp for you to get you to the right place. And I've got a couple more to secure, and then I just need to tidy it all up because we've obviously got our little spidery bits hiding at the back there. So I'll just tuck these ones away and then we'll get on to it. I think I'm going to wrap that one around there. No, I'm not. I'm going to move it. I want it to go this way. I'm going to tuck it around the back. Look at this, looking absolutely beautiful. It's like there's a mountain range in the background. That's what I loved about this piece. I thought this stone was really, really pretty. It's got such a interesting, oh, my necklace is twisted. Got a really interesting pattern to this stone. That's why I bought this one specifically. I absolutely love buying stones. I have far too many. I'm sure a lot of you are exactly the same. We are nearly there with this. Got one more little bit. So as you can see, if I turn it around from this side, we have our beautiful tree. From this side, we have all our spidery crazy bits that I need to tuck away. So I'm just going to focus on that. I'm not going to leave them all this long. They only need to be tucked around maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I cut it off right down at the base so that it's away from your skin. So I'm just going to focus on that, tucking it all away so it's nice and neat, and then I'll show you how to finish it. Like this piece. There should still be a little gap from the stone so that you can actually tuck it under. Some of these don't need cutting off, but some of them will. This one is definitely being fiddly. There we go. There's this one. That's it. Rid of that. once you get a feel for the pliers and things, you'll choose which ones suit you best, I think. I do use my fingers. I probably use my fingers too much, actually. That's why I'm ripped to pieces most of the time, because I keep stabbing myself. That is coming through. Pull that nice and tight. So those two have been wrapped around a number of times. So what I can do is just cut off those ends right down in the centre so that I can tuck those right away. And they're away from the skin. If you can feel any rough parts, just use your pliers to push them down and pinch it in, and it should smooth out there. Perfect. So I'm just working my way around now, finishing off, tucking everything away. Can't see the end. There we go, got it. Again, that one's gone around enough times so I can cut that off right down there. Tuck away that end on the inner side, because we don't want, first of all, we don't want anything coming undone, and second of all, we don't want it to stab anyone. So that's really being fully tucked away now. There's a little bit of a rough bit, so just keep running my finger along and making sure that I'm tucking everything out. Do this bit. We are getting there. This is the fiddly bit. I've got a cramp in my fingers then. Right. I'm pulling quite tight here because I don't want it to come undone. And it just really secures everything. If you turn it back over just to make sure that it's still looking lovely, which it is, and shake my hand because I've got a cramp in it. There's just a couple more things on this side to tuck away. Pulling it up to my face so I can actually see what I'm doing for a second. You have probably figured out how to tuck them all away yourself by now, so that's fine. I'll bring it back to the board in a minute. Done this one so tight that I almost can't tuck the last bit away. So I'm just going to cut that off, which is a good thing, obviously, because it means it's nice and firm. Right, 4 more to go. Yes, we're getting there. As I said before, it does take a while because there's like 30 strands to tuck under. So it is the time consuming bit. Sorry. Get rid of this long bit. Cut that one off because that's gone through a good 2 or 3 times now, so I don't need that bit. And tuck it away. So close to finishing. Try and tuck all of these at the same time because they're all close together, so yes, and there we go. Right, so I'm just going to check that this is all sitting the way I want it to. At the front I'm fairly happy, but I can pull these bits apart with my fingers, and then we're just going to finish off. So I'm going to show you how to create this bail and how to finish it off at the back. So I'm just going to wrap this round a couple of times at the base. I'm going to start off with this kind of figure of 8 weave. We're just going to go in and out, creating this weave. I wrap it twice around either side like this. Make sure it's in a nice position, because what we have to do is go up and out, and then we go in again to create that form. So I'm just going to wrap. This bit's so much quicker. Took ages to tuck away all those ends, isn't it? But looks beautiful, I think. Don't want a massive bail at the top, so I'm not going to go too far. I just like to have that little bit of extra just to give me the opportunity if I want. I decide at the end really what the bail's going to look like and how I'm going to do it. So it just gives you that little bit of leeway. You don't want to cut it too short and then not be able to finish it, because it's very difficult to add a bail. So that is high enough for me, I think, at the moment, and I want to just pull it back in a bit so that it then starts to go back, so we form that, because this is just here is where I'm going to bend it over. So let's work our way back in again. Ooh. And I just pull it gently to bring it back together again. Nearly there. I like to create the whole thing flat first because it's just easier, and then bend it with the pliers to get the right shape at the end. I think very nearly back to pulled it back into where we want it to be. Da-dum. And there we go. So I'm not going to cut off the excess yet, because I kind of want to wrap it around. So I'm just going to bend it with my fingers a little bit, but I want to bend it down so that it sits like this. Just fiddle around to get it sitting in place. And what I'm going to do is, probably can cut this off now. I'm going to cut it off and just really firmly wrap this all the way around the bottom. So I've got a really nice, firm and neat finish at the top there. Tuck away, oh, not that attached to me. Tuck away the end inside. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a technical issue, and this the camera that's filming my hands went off, but luckily we've still got everything, and I'll just show you how to finish off the end there. So all I did before I realised is I just chopped off the excess bit there, and all I'm going to do to finish this off is get my round nosed pliers, and I'm just going to twist this. It just gives it a little bit of a prettier finish at the end. Just twist it up like that. Make sure it's totally flat on the back. And we finished. Look at that. I only needed to do 30 seconds and the camera went off. But anyway, there is our beautiful finished Tree of Life pendant using silver wire and a moss agate stone. And if you enjoyed watching this video and you enjoyed making it, I'd love to see what people make. If you're in the same wire wrapping group as me, please do put your pictures up and show me. And I just want to see if you can create something as well. And subscribe, like my videos, it all helps. I really appreciate you watching, and I will catch you again soon. Bye.